Hello and welcome to this podcast, Pipeline to Profitability. And today I have someone who I believe you're really going to get a lot of value from, Corey Berrier, who is the founder of Successful Life podcast. We've only just met recently. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And so I'm going to do something a little bit differently today. Normally I do a long introduction, but today I'm going to hand the microphone to you, Corey, because you've got a very special story that you would like to tell to our audience, and they'd love to hear a little bit about Corey Berrier and what you do.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. I'm super looking forward to this. I've got a bunch of things that I've done, but primarily I work with contractors and I work with their sales teams, technicians, CSRs. But I've moved a little bit away from that, Alan. I have been neck deep in artificial intelligence for about 7 months or so. And you and I have had some conversations around this. We've been building a software that I can't really get into a whole lot on here that's going to help streamline customer service reps and their ability to perform at a high level. I've written a couple of books, and I love working with contractors. The reason I love working with contractors is because I have a foul mouth, and if I drop the F-bomb, everybody in the room's okay.
Nothing wrong with dropping the old F-bomb. I try to hold back where I can, but I often say to people, it's not deliberate with me. It's usually passion and might come out as just a way of expressing myself. And I'm sure you're much the same, Corey.
I am, but I have held back, though. I tell you, it's not a good look when you say it constantly for me anyway. No. One of the things, Alan, that I think is really important for contractors to hear from this show, if they don't hear anything else, is like if people are not getting into and understanding how to utilize these different integrations with artificial intelligence and streamlining these processes in their business, I think you're missing the boat. And I believe that people that are looking at this and that are implementing it in their lives and in their businesses, one, they have an easier time. That's the first thing. And then secondly, I think you're going to be left behind, not you, but I think people that are listening, if they're, standoffish about this, or quite frankly, a lot of people are just against it. And I think the reason for that is because they don't understand it. And it is complicated. It can be complicated, but I'll just tell you that it makes life a lot less complicated, truthfully.
To be honest with you, and most people fear change, but I think when you can still fear it, but I think you have to adapt and you have to go with it. I mean, AI is moving fast, and I think every 10 years we say, let's go back 20 years, the internet or longer, then social. There's all these changes that are coming that affect the industry, and you either go with it or you don't. And I think anyone that doesn't get on board with AI as a way to improve efficiencies, and I'd like to dig into, get your view on efficiencies, because I think, well, actually, I don't think, I know for a fact that every service company on the planet can improve its profitability, bottom line, by improving efficiencies. So this is the direction I see we're going, whether we fucking like it or not. Oops. And I'd love your view, Corey, on AI and how it can improve a service company's efficiency as well. Where is the industry heading right now?
Well, I do believe it's heading towards more efficiency. And look, I'll just be honest with you. The trades typically are, they're 4 or 5 years behind where a lot of people, technology wise, for sure, 4 or 5 years behind. But this is a time right now that as a contractor, if you get the right help, you don't have to be that 5 years behind. You can get ahead of the curve right now. You don't have to wait until it feels like you miss the boat again, so to speak. And some of the ways that I'm seeing and helping contractors automate things are like, for example, reviews, right? A lot of people don't, reviews drive a business. So we have a process that you could automate. And what I mean by that is we set up triggers that whenever you leave a house, a trigger you set up, people probably don't know what I'm talking about with a trigger, but let's just say an automation. We set up an automation that goes to the customer and gets that review, right? Then that review has another automation that puts it in the right place to where your team can then put it on the internet. Or better yet, we can even automate it to go straight to social media. We can automate it to do anything. And that's just one simple thing. And look, follow up. I mean, my God, I could talk about that all day. If you don't have some sort of automation with your follow up, you are really missing the boat, because I think we could both agree that, we're not the best at follow up. Look, a lot of people in this industry have ADHD just like I do. That's another reason that I really enjoy working with people in this industry, is because I already know what you struggle with. I already know that you forget to do follow up. I know that you forget to do the things sometimes that are really important. Why? Not because you don't want to do them, but because they're not fun. They don't light your brain up. They don't make you want to do these things. And sometimes even if money's attached to them, we still don't do them. So yeah, that's a couple of ways that we're doing. It's a couple of things that we're doing with automation.
I love it. Everything that you say. I mean, we've had some really good chats in the last few weeks, and but you've touched a nerve, not just with me, but with many contractors, and follow up. I mean, I could go on. I could talk about follow up for the whole podcast and only touch 1% of what I believe needs to happen. But I did a fantastic podcast a few weeks back with a fellow team member that used to work for me. He was one of my first marketing managers, and I invested in Brent to go to learn a product called Infusionsoft or Confusionsoft. I think it's called Keep now, and it's marketing automation. And when used correctly, it's the best follow-up tool. But most contractors are not going to invest in that. And look, we're about to launch training and products within our coaching service on helping contractors to follow up leads, follow up opportunities, quotes, follow up everything. And so a couple of things that we talked about. Efficiencies, improve efficiencies, you improve the business, improve your follow-up and improve your communication. And I believe that, and I've learned so much from you, Corey, I believe that AI can be a great add-on to any business with follow-up and communication to clients. So I just had to throw that in, my friend.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. And I agree with you. Look, you can streamline through AI. You could streamline your communication channels. What I mean by that is if you communicate primarily through email, which we all don't, none of us really love email. So streamline that process. And I don't mean have a robot answer your emails. Let's be clear what I'm saying here. But we forget to respond to people. We forget, again, to follow up. Even if it's the owner, we forget to follow up with people. And so you can streamline that process to where it goes into one place and you constantly have it in one area that's labeled, and you can go to that one area and answer all of your messages. Like, that's like a dream come true. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Just for anyone that's listening, and our audience, Corey, is fellow contractors, business owners. Some technicians jump in, the ones that are proactive. But I learned this with my involvement with best practice from around 2007, and I sat in on a seminar. It was a fellow contractor. I won't mention any names. He'll know who he is if he's tuned in. He was a $3 million business that was generating 30%, $1 million of his sales came from following up proposals that the technicians had left that didn't follow up. Now, we know what I know what technicians are like because I've employed hundreds of them over the years. They don't much like follow up. Why don't they like follow up? Because they're worried that the customer might say no. But if you look at no as well, that's just moving you one step closer to getting the sale. And no never means no. I mean, since when do you stop at the first no? So, but yeah, I was blown away by this company generating 30% of its sales. It was really a $2 million company that added $1 million just by follow-up. So how would the average contractor and you know, big and small, introduce AI with you know, this is your knowledge, into their company to improve on follow-up?
Great question. So, you know, and I've had to change my view on this because, you know, I would train companies. I'm not going to answer your question immediately. So I would train companies. I would pull a CSR, the best CSR, and I would train them on just a 3-step process that I don't know if I didn't create it. I don't even know where I got it from. But I would have the CSR reach out via phone. Hey, Alan, just want to call, let you know we left you I'm sorry. We would send a voice note, not a voice note, a voicemail drop. I'll get it right in a minute. A voicemail drop to where the ringless voicemail. You would get a message. The phone wouldn't ring. You get a message, say, hey, Alan, I just want to let you know I'm following up on XYZ. And I sent you an email you should check. I sent you an email. Then we send them a text message saying, hey, just want to let you know, we're sorry we missed your call. The voicemail drop. And then we have the email that is the follow-up also. So you really get 3 follow-ups in one swoop. And so the way that you can automate this now is set up, well, it's called Zaps. Zapier is an integration tool that I think is probably most common. I think Billy uses this a lot, actually. But you could set up Zaps to where if the technician leaves the invoice, set it up for a day later. You could set it up for several hours later. You set up the follow-up. You could set up just there's a multitude of different ways in the system, and you could set it up depending on the company and depending on what product that you're selling or whatever it is. So, for example, you could set up a follow-up to sell a different product. Like maybe you complete the sale, right? We're kind of talking about not completing the sale at this point, but what if you do complete it? There's an opportunity that you could go sell them something else. Because let's just be honest, not everything gets sold at the first time. A membership agreement, it's a great example. If you go to a customer's house, you don't close a membership agreement, you have another opportunity to send an automation to get in front of that customer, right? And you can set it up to where all this stuff, you're not bothering the customer. And I think that's where a lot of people go. That's where a lot of people's mind gets in the way. They think, well, I don't want to hound this customer about this invoice. Well, guess what? If you don't follow up with the customer because you think they're getting multiple estimates and they've already told you verbally they're getting other estimates and now they're going with someone else, what's the chances of that guy even showing up and doing a good job? 50-50, maybe, right? So if you don't follow up, but you're never going to know that guy didn't show up. And now you've left the customer abandoned because they thought they were getting a better deal or they thought they were going with a better company, and that company didn't show up. And now you've missed the boat on a customer that if you just followed up, you could have gotten the deal. But a lot of people hear that no, like you said earlier, no, not right now is how I hear it. Maybe it's not right now, but it could be in 2 days when that guy came out and maybe he did a crappy job. You never know. No. But the chances are pretty good. You still have a shot.
Yeah, you're right there. A beautiful response. No doesn't mean no. It just no means no. You haven't actually convinced me yet, or you haven't given me enough value that matches the price that you've dropped in front of me. Because let's face it, Corey, most of the companies that you and me work with, they're in the top 1%, maybe top 5%. And usually all the companies I work with are the high price guys or higher price guys. They don't have to be the dearest. And you know, when you're selling a high price product or a superior product, and that's I shouldn't call the companies I work with high priced. I should call them high value companies. You do need to understand that that might be more than the customer actually wanted to pay, and you need to show them the massive value that you're going to give. But I want to give this example for any of the smaller companies that, or any companies that are listening. I've trained a lot of technicians how to sell down under, and I've had technicians that were selling consistently between $200,000 to $300,000 every single month, selling drain repairs and drain replacements. I had one of my technicians was not the best of sales guys, and maybe he just lacked confidence and maybe had a fear of price, like most salespeople do. But he had phenomenal follow-up. So his close rate on presenting proposal was really low, and we were thinking, well, maybe he shouldn't be in a sales position. But he had relentless follow-up systems, and he made most of his sales, if not all, came after the fact when he followed the customer up, and he followed up relentlessly. But not too many do that. So if we could help our fellow contractors to put in a follow-up process, and by the way, I love voice broadcasting. I mean, for anyone that's listening, you can actually put a voicemail on your customer's phone. You can put it on 1,000 phones in the click of a button, just by using a product that zaps with, say, Infusionsoft and that. So voice broadcasting, I've been talking about it for years. Ringless voicemail, whatever you call it, but there's ways to do it. And this is where I'm fascinated by the value that you bring with AI and how it's going to integrate with the likes of Sera and Sera, S-E-R-A. For anyone that doesn't know what Sera is, it's possibly the fastest growing product, dispatching product in the service market right now. And we're both blessed to know the founder, Billy Stevens, and yeah, I'm sure he's using AI and technology in his business. So it's a matter of what does our audience, our contractors, need to do to improve on their follow-up by using AI. I mean, I know I probably have asked you this question, but I want to, Corey, I want to make it as easy as possible for our audience to either find a way to do it themselves, or maybe I'm sure you'll share all your contact details so they can reach out to you and discuss further.
Sure. So, one of the things I just want to hit on really quick, for if you are a technician or if you're an owner, this would be great to tell your technicians. If you call, let's just say that they decide they're getting more estimates and you for whatever reason, you couldn't get the deal right then. Make sure you always say, hey, whenever you get these other estimates, I'll be happy to come out free of charge and just give a comparison and show you, maybe it is a better deal and maybe we are going to be overpriced, but I want to make sure that you're getting priced out the same thing that I've priced you, because lots of times, I'm sure you know this, of course, people will undercut, they'll take shortcuts, and it makes it a cheaper product. And at the end of the day, it's not going to perform the same as your, let's call it, more superior product, right? So if a contractor, lots of times when you go into this and try to do it yourself, and this is not me trying to pitch myself, I am a sales guy, but at the end of the day, if it's confusing and it gets frustrating, lots of times we have a short fuse for stuff like that. And lots of times we just think, well, it's just not going to work for me. But I promise you, if you have somebody come in and implement these integrations, like we're talking about with Zapier, you could have follow-up questions for your technicians. Did you follow up with Miss Jones? Right? Something as simple as that. And there could be an opportunity for them to be able to check yes or no, right? And then they move to the next thing, or maybe make that something they have to do in order to go to the next sale. Not the next sale, that wouldn't make sense. But does that make sense? That last part didn't quite make sense. But do you see what I mean? Like, there's checks and balances. You could ask AI, you could use AI to ask questions for the technician. Let's say it's the day after the sale. Did you follow up with Miss Jones? Did you do X, Y, and Z? And you have the ability to communicate through the software. Does that make sense?
It does. Look, I tell you, just doubling back to it. Look, it makes sense to me perfectly because we had a pretty in-depth conversation about this a couple of weeks back. But I see companies out there saying that AI will replace their CSRs. I don't believe that we're quite there yet. Will that happen in the future? Possibly. I mean, anything can happen. If McDonald's can have stores running with no staff, fully run by robots and AI, well, anything is possible. But I still think our CSR's jobs are safe. But what I do see, Corey, is companies using your AI product to help get because the customer's going to throw something at you fairly quickly. And a lot of the times, I mean, one of the things with my companies is we didn't want our CSRs to have all the answers, because what we wanted them to do was basically book the fucking call, so that we could get a qualified technician in front of that customer and they would have all the answers. But today, people are a bit smarter than that now. They don't want a technician to come out until they're convinced that it's the right company. So if we can utilize AI to assist our CSRs to get access to all the answers that they need, I think that's a powerful thing. And that was based on what you explained to me. And I think if anyone that's not using AI right now is missing out on a valuable resource. You can punch anything in there. Well, most things you put into ChatGPT, it's going to give you not one answer, it'll give you multiple answers. And if your product can put some answers, if the customer rings in and says, let's say, because I'm not an air conditioning guy, I did own an air conditioning company, but I'm a plumber, so you can throw any plumbing question at me. But air conditioning, let's say, the customer says, I'd like further information on the type of system and what will it do. That the CSRs, which shouldn't have that information anyway, they might have some, can they just get that answer straight away to get back to the customer? Am I hitting on some of the things that you're doing?
You are. And I think, prepare or having the CSR have maybe better questions to ask. So let's look at it like that. So maybe they ask a question about the hot water heater or the HVAC unit. Wouldn't it make more sense for them to have better questions to ask the customer that they, for lack of better terms, they may not know the answers to these questions. They're probably not going to know them. And that puts you back in the power position to then book that call. Right? Because if I have to ask you questions about whatever the problem is, if it's plumbing or it's electrical, whatever, there are questions we can ask that the customer's just not going to know. And so you just pivot from that and say, well, without having this information, we've got to come out and take a look. Right? But it's an easier conversation. And you're right. Let's take an emergency call, for example. There's lots of times that they'll dispatch the best technician to an emergency call, but it's not even an emergency call. Mm-hmm. It's a maintenance call. And now you've wasted your top technician on a call that's not going to be revenue generating. That makes no sense to me.
No.
So if you could figure out, and we in the software, we have figured out how to dispatch the right technician, kind of like right technician, right call. What is it, Billy? How does he call it? Right tech, right call.
Yeah, I forget the exact term, but look, it's something that I was taught many years ago by Joe Cunningham. Is sometimes if you've got technicians on the field and you've got technicians that are really have got the qualifications that match what's got to be done, that's the right technician to send to that call. And he might be the furthest away from that call. And a lot of companies just go, oh, Johnny's nearby. He's only a couple of streets away, but he hasn't got any skill whatsoever to match what the customer called out for. But one thing you touched on, Corey, was, we get I mean, most service companies get people that just they ring up and give me a price on a 50-gallon hot water heater. And what you touched on is so important. The reason we don't want to give a price, because there's the low ballers out there that are putting a ridiculously low price. I mean, with our companies in Sydney, we'd have companies that were approximately 1/3 of the price. So let's say they'd do a job for, let's call it $1,000. We're at least 3 times that. So if they said, just give me a price on 50-gallon or 70, whatever, we would then have some questions to ask. So is it gas or is it electric? Oh no, it's gas. Oh great. What size is the rate? What size is your pipe work and regulator? So we'd throw questions at the customer. So they go, well, I don't know this. Well, great, because we've got a technician in the area and he can come out and he can give you an exact price. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So we would get the qualified technician out there that had the best communication, sales skills, we might call it. We try not to use the word sales. And he would sell the value of not only himself and the company to make the sale. But that's where I think AI could be used really well, is having, customer says it's a 50-gallon, blah, 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 and then being able to pull up all the things that the CSR can actually fire back at the customer that they're not going to know unless they've got access to ChatGPT. But ChatGPT, if I say it right, is not going to have the information on their system and their regulators and all that. So there is things we can do with everything that we sell, where the customer will go, all right, well, I'm happy to pay your dispatch fee to send a qualified technician out. So that's my view anyway, Corey.
So I'm glad you said it like that. I'm glad that you said, well, they may not have the information, but here's the thing with AI. We train the model on the company's information. So let's just pretend that you have 1,000 calls. We take 1,000 calls and we train the model at Allen's HVAC company or Allen's plumbing company. I don't remember the name of the company. Sorry. Omega is okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So
Bongo plumbing.
Yeah, there you go. So we train it on the conversations that you're already having with the customer. So let's just be honest, there's not a whole lot of different conversations that come into one company about, if it's a plumbing company, they're all plumbing questions, right? So we can train this AI model, and this is like a magic, it feels like. We could train the AI model to know what those questions are. We can know, it trains the AI model on how you want those questions answered, right? We train the AI model on how to get, so for example, if we take 1,000 calls that this is not trained on, we know the vulnerabilities inside of those calls because we have different data points that we can look at to see if they answered the question right, if they didn't answer it right. And we could pull that data together, and then Alan can look at it and say, yeah, this was not right, or this was right. I would like for them to answer it this way. And then we train on that, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, love it. Yeah, it's perfect. There's so much value any company, correct me if I'm wrong, any company that's listening, big or small, can get from helping. Look, it's so, as an owner of a larger company, and every large company starts off as a small company. I think the job of the owner, the CEO, is to help their staff succeed, right? If this can help our CSRs to succeed and convert more calls, when you look at the cost of generating the call, I mean, that's a whole different story. This is why I'm a massive advocate of tapping into the existing customers, the ones you've already got, the ones that trust you, the ones that are more than likely going to spend dollars with your company again. So that's a different subject, but just utilizing AI to help our CSRs to perform their job better. So listen, Corey, we'll have to round up in a second. This has been fantastic. And I just want to, as we end the podcast, ask you, is there any special book that you're reading at the moment that you'd like to share with our viewers? And then I'd like you to maybe just close out by letting everyone that's taken time out of their busy day to join you and me on this podcast, how they can get a hold of Corey Berrier, besides jumping onto your fantastic podcast, which I'm sure that the episode that I'm on is going to be your number one podcast. Yeah. So,
My
what book do you
volume
reckon?
went out. One
What
second.
book is going to help our fellow contractors? Maybe it's one of your
What
books,
happened
Corey.
here?
I mean, that's fine by me.
So, Malcolm Gladwell is a guy. I don't know much about Malcolm, but it's called "What the Dog Saw." And look, this might be a little bit out there. I don't know, but what I love about this book is it gives you a different perspective. So, if a dog's getting ready to bite you, you don't know what that dog's thinking. You don't know, and this is just kind of an overview. You don't know why they're getting ready to bite you, but there's reasons behind it that you're not that we would never know unless you listen to this book and think about it. What's that dog thinking? Right. And I'll just give you a quick sidebar to that. The owner, right? If the owner acts scared, the dog tries to bite you. Right. And that's the reason behind it. It's just a really interesting book. It's a different kind of it's just a different book, but it's really good.
I have heard of the author Malcolm Gladwell. Yes, he's got other books out there.
He does.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's just I like it because it gives you look at it from a customer standpoint. You've got to put yourself in the customer's shoes. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know why they're saying the things that they are, positive or negative. But if you can think about it from their standpoint, if you can put yourself in their shoes, you're going to be able to have a better conversation with them.
absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So how do we how do our my listeners, viewers get a hold of Corey Berrier?
So the best way to do that would be through just my email, Corey Berrier, or Corey@CoreyBerrier.com. And then you could go to my website, CoreyBerrier.com. That would be the easiest way because I have it automated into my Slack channel and it's super easy for me to get to.
Cool. I want to thank you. This has been another informative podcast. And, I just want to say this to everyone that's tuned in. Besides thanking you for taking time out of your busy day, I really do this podcast for me, to be honest with you, because I get so much from this. I get to meet some of the greatest people in the industry, and it's always a lot of fun. And I'm learning as we go. And I'm hoping that something that Corey or myself has shared with you today is going to help you to grow your business. So thanks again, Corey. Really, really do appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for joining in on our podcast Pipeline to Profitability. Over and out, right?